Okay. So speaking of the future, good segue here. You just recently got hired by Moon Studios.
Yeah.
And, this is very recent. Like, at the time, it's like 7 days out. 7 days ago, you announced via Twitter that you were hired by Moon Studios. So, what
hmm
I want to know is, did Moon Studios approach you? Did you approach them? Was it kind of like a mutual thing? You heard of each other? Well, tell us the story here.
Well, it was just another day, and I did check my email,
hmm
and I did find an email from Thomas, the CEO of Moon Studios, explaining his what Ori and the Blind Forest is, and offering me a position. And at that point, I kind of freaked out. I I
Understandably.
couldn't I couldn't believe it. A couple of weeks ago, I had played Ori and the Black Forest for the first time. I got it on a Steam sale, and I thought it was pretty awesome. There's some very interesting mechanics, and the
Uh,
game is actually gorgeous.
oh, okay. We'll get into Ori later as well. But, because as a game, yeah, Ori is a great game. It looks amazing. But it definitely has some problems. And those are problems that I just problems that I
Uh,
always look at, and I'm just like, guys, just a little bit, just a little tweaking, just a little, would have made it so much better.
I played the Definitive Edition. Maybe some of those issues were addressed out there, possibly.
Maybe I have the original version, but I did just recently update to the other one. To the
All right.
I had downloaded it on my Xbox. It was like you paid an extra $5, you got the definitive. So I got to the point where I could play a little of the DLC, which just
Mm-hmm.
feels like it was very just slapped on. But it's good. Like, Ori and the Blind Forest is definitely like challenging, but it goes back to like my biggest problem with Metroidvania games, and that is Ori never feels strong enough. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Ori is always this delicate little flower that is always gonna get hit, and it just sometimes I understand that point, but maybe it's just like how I like when I approach it, and I'm 10 hours into the game, and this enemy takes me out in a couple hits. I'm just like, I understand. You want you made him stronger. But at the same point in time, I just collected almost all the health orbs. The other one I need, the last one I need, is right in front of me, and you just killed me right before I got there.
Okay,
So
that's also kind of like a narrative approach of describing what the character is. Um, if we go to the other end of the spectrum, by the end game, Samus is so strong. She pretty much is a tank, a moving tank.
yeah,
And the game actually stops being a challenge at all. You got Screw Attack and the Gravity Suit. Pretty much nothing can stop you. And any challenges that come from that point on are merely artificial because she is actually insanely powerful.
yeah,
In this case, it's the exact opposite. This is just a very tiny, little, delicate creature that's insanely floaty and nimble and has very good mobility to avoid conflict. And the overall design, I think it revolves more around that compared to straight combat.
yeah. I can agree with you, but at the same point in time, it's just like I would have. When you're almost at the full amount of health, and a guy takes you out in one or two hits, I'm just like, okay, if you're a boss, that's acceptable, but if you're not, it's just bull. Like, it just
Yeah,
one like
I
give me
understand.
that third hit. Just give me that third hit, and I would have been fine. But just the fact that, and sometimes like they shoot you off screen, and you just like, it's off. It's off. You can't do it. You can't hit them off screen, but they can hit you off screen, and it is just ridiculous. And I'm just like, just a little tweaking what I'm trying to do. I still maintain that Ori and the Blind Forest is a fantastic game, and if you're looking for a challenging Metroidvania, that's the way to
hmm
go. But it's just like just a little tweaking right there, because like sometimes that just really pisses you off. When you're just like, you need that one little bit of health that's just off screen, and you haven't got to the point where it comes to you yet, and then hits you
hmm
and you're dead. I'm just like,
Yes,
some
I
of these
understand.
guys have like the best aim too. Oh, off the backboard, blindfolded. I'm just like, bull, just bull.
But that's also part of the mechanic, the bashing ability.
Mm-hmm.
These things need to be aiming at you because you need to use their projectiles to move around sometime. So yeah, I understand it's insanely frustrating to get hit by a projectile that you didn't see coming, but it in some places it's actually needed to actually move around.
Yeah, no, fantastic game, still a fantastic game. Has
Mm-hmm.
some, you can tell like it was definitely Moon Studios' first game, but like as a first game goes, that is
Mm-hmm.
a amazing looking, fantastic game. I have my rage quit moments with it, but it usually passes, and I can usually put that back and be like, yeah, you know what, it's my fault, but still,
All right,
like,
I'll do my best to provide at least my point of view and whatever I can actually contribute to try to make all these situations that require conflict a little bit more fair
yeah,
than the situations to describe. So
yeah. But it's still like, I mean, Ori and the Blind Forest was definitely, and it's heavily Metroid inspired. Like you can see, like with the atmosphere, like we talked about earlier, it's just so heavy in that game, and
certainly.
it's really good, and yeah, definitely like worth. If you guys haven't played Ori and the Blind Forest, and I think what is it like $10 on Steam now? Like, yeah,
I think so, yes.
yeah, it's definitely
We
worth playing. You just buy it and play that game. It's worth the $10. But yeah. So is there like, you said you played Ori and the Blind Forest right before though. We're gonna get back to the podcast, but uh, we get off on tangents. Maybe we just ought to just right. Anyways,
those are the most interesting talks, when you derail into interesting stuff.
yeah, I have a bunch of notes here I wanted to get into, but it's just you were just having so much fun talking because once again it's basically two big Metroidvania fans, two big video game nerds here just talking, and it's one guy who's actually made a video game and one guy that just plays maybe too many of them.
That's a good combination, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose. Anyways, but like, you played Ori and the Blind Forest, you thought it was fine. Like, did you think, oh my god, Destiny? I played their game and now they contacted me.
Not with that cliche voice, but kind of, yes. It was pretty. It was pretty shocking. At first, I thought of the possibility of just this guy just being a troll and impersonating someone on the industry. I did some checks, and this was the real guy. And actually got to talk to some of the members of the entire team, and they are very awesome people. You actually know, and you can see that these are not the typical corporate game makers. These are artists, people that take their time to craft their work, and it's you can actually see the results in Ori, even if the some of the designs are not. You don't agree with some of the designs, you can actually see the passion and love that these people put into the game.
Oh yeah.
And I was actually able to talk to these people. They are nice, they are simple, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be amazing to work with these awesome professionals.
Yeah, I maintain like Ori and the Blind Forest is a beautiful game, and like I always say, when it works, but then like when those annoying moments happen, it's just, to me, it's just like, and it's not so much I'm frustrated with the game as I'm frustrated with myself a lot of the times, but I'm just like, my god, I can't believe you just sniped me from off the screen. And I'm just, or like, when you do the when you can jump up and you can shoot off from an enemy projectile, and sometimes if you get too close, the projectile will hit you and you'll take damage. It's like, I understand that, but at the same point in time, if you tell me I can do that, you let me do that, how come I now get hit? It's kind of just like, well, dummy, you did it wrong. And I'm just like, oh, okay, I mean, I understand it's my fault, but seriously, like, maybe just not allow me to take damage when I'm dodging?
Yes,
because the game
that did happen to me quite a lot too.
The game acknowledges that I hit it right. The game acknowledges that by me being able to use the momentum. But when the game then acknowledges that it also hit me, I'm just like, so you want your cake and you want to eat it too? Fine. It's just like those little things. And the fact of the matter is, here I am nitpicking on the little things of this game. And that should speak out a lot, to like the how good Ori is. Like when you have to actively look for the little things in a game and not like the big broad strokes of the game. Instead of, you're gonna you take damage when you try to do the dodge, or some enemy shoots you from off screen. Like
Mm-hmm.
the rest of it, Ori is a fantastic game. Especially if you look at it like I'm just nitpicking.
Certainly. So I'm looking forward to see what the sequel has to offer, and certainly I will try to avoid that problem at all if it's within my reach. So I
Well,
actually did suffer that situation myself too.
well, if you're gonna be doing the level design like you say, I don't think it's
Mm-hmm.
gonna be a problem. Like from what I played of AM2R, the level design is amazing. Like
Well, thank you, sir.
you know your stuff, so.
Well,
And
it's one of the benefits of having to study all the rest of the Metroid level designs.
mhm.
One has to look a little bit of inspiration and what does the game work. Super Metroid works for various reasons besides atmosphere. And the level design, the way the progression is made, how the level flows, how the power-ups are hidden, um, how some of the power-ups are required and expected for the player to get. Those kind of things are very different in between all the Metroids, and having to study that and how that works certainly gave me tools to apply to M2R up to a certain degree. I followed the original design to a point, but some of the later areas are a lot more original, and I did try to apply those elements by myself with a new twist.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that's just had to be done, because you're taking a game that was released on the Game Boy, with its
Mm-hmm.
monochrome screen, and it's dot matrix. And then you gotta take that, and now you gotta bring it to a modern day Windows PC, and yeah, remake that. Like you go ahead and remake that, and it's very much like you took the route of I'm gonna go with sprites, 2D, and all that. And now it's interesting to see that Nintendo was sat back and was just like, okay, we're gonna let these guys, what is their name? The guys behind
Mercury Stream.
uh, Media Stream. Either way, I don't know. I'll look it up
I
later.
believe it's Mercury Steam.
Mercury Stream. Yeah, you're right. But like those guys went along with the idea of, okay, we're gonna go with sprites. We're not gonna go with sprites. I mean, we're gonna go with polygons, and it's gonna be 2.5D. It's gonna be very much like a GameCube-esque looking game, So it's cool to see that, and by all accounts, it looks like Metroid: Return of Samus is amazing looking, and I'm definitely gonna buy that on my 3DS when I get the chance. Wish it was on my Switch, but beggars can't be choosers. But while we're on this topic, though, what was your feeling like when they announced, Samus Return of Samus? Were you just like, oh, no, that makes sense, or you jackasses I would have just made this game for you, and you could have put it up on your eShop?
Well, it was quite a surprise. I was actually taking a nap by then. I had completely forgotten about E3 that day, and suddenly my phone started ringing all the time. The Twitter notifications went crazy.
Yeah.
And when I saw the trailer, it was strange. It was my first reaction was, wow. So that's how a Zeta Metroid looks with a budget. That looks fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And
Now, do you
the
own a
count,
3DS?
no, sir.
Is this game gonna make you go out and buy a 3DS?
I'm starting to look into some prices, and it's not entirely out of question.
Because I had a friend who came to me and was just like, did you hear of Return of Samus? Or Samus Returns? And I'm just like, yeah, I watched the E3 coverage. I did a video on the two Metroid games. He goes, oh my god, I'm going to go buy a 2DS. I'm like, why? Just buy a 3DS XL. No, a new 3DS. Like, what's wrong with you? He goes, well, the 2DS is cheaper. I go, yeah, but it's also, like, crappy looking. And, 3DS is better. So we went out and bought a
right
new
here,
3DS for it.
with all the import fees and all the stuff that we need to get through to get one of those, pretty much the 3DS XL and the 2DS, the new 2DS, are pretty much at the same price. How's the 3D? How's the 3D thingy working?
It's a
Is it good
slider on
enough?
the screen.
Okay, but is the effect convincing? Is it headache
I have
inducing?
not been able to go hands on. I am in a remote area of the United States, so they are not going to bring Metroid or Samus Returns anywhere near me.
No,
But
no, no, no. But
as
I
far as
mean,
like, do I use?
the overall 3D effect, is it too distracting? Because I can't decide if I'm going to be getting a 2DS or a 3DS. Is the 3D on the screen worth the extra bucks?
It all depends, because like I'm one of those guys that barely uses the 3D. But at the same
Okay.
point in time, I bought a new 3DS XL because it has like the second joystick,
Mm-hmm.
and it's pretty nice. Like, the stronger processor and all that is really cool. But if you're really looking into getting a new 3DS or a 3DS, I would get the new 2DS XL, like, which is basically the new 3DS XL, but they stripped it with is 3D. And
Awesome.
I think that's cheaper than the 3DS, and it's also like supposed to be more durable or whatever. But yeah, I mean, if it was me, and if it looked about the same price, and you wanted, do I want a 2DS or a 3DS? I'd just go with the 3DS, because like I feel like I think it looks cooler. But once again, that's my aesthetic choice kind of thing, instead of like the plastic little light blue. Now then again, if they were to make a plastic with the red rings around it, I might consider getting one. Because I like that
Okay.
color scheme, if you haven't seen my logo.
All right. It's good to know, sir.
But yeah, I mean, back to Samus Returns though. But you're just like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I actually do like some of the ideas. The counter mechanic looks interesting. I'm really not sure how easy it is to pull off, or if it's going to be making the game way too easy for people that can pull it off consistently. I'm really curious on seeing how that mechanic is going to be used on the later enemies, like the Omega Metroids and the Queen fight.
Well, I wonder if they're just not going to allow you to do it. You see what I'm saying? Because by all accounts, from people that I've heard talk about it, they keep saying how the counter mechanic is super strong and allows people to like take things out really easily. But at the same point in time, like, they're worried about it overpowering in the later sections of the game. So I'm thinking,
maybe they're going to be making the attacks less telegraphed for the bigger enemies, so it's possible, but insanely tricky.
yeah,
Maybe.
but would I'm thinking, like, if you would make it less telegraphed, people would start to feel a little cheated. You know what I mean? Well, he didn't telegraph that he was going to do that move. I could have dodged it. Oh my god, damn Nintendo. So. I'm thinking more along the lines of maybe there's a shield or something you gotta take out before they can do it. There's gotta.
Oh yeah, that's another possibility.
Like that. I believe in Nintendo, but this is Mercury Stream or whatever. But Nintendo's definitely gonna have a hand in this.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that we're gonna see something. I don't know if they just won't allow it, or maybe there'll be a section of the game where they won't allow you to do the dodge roll, or the dodge or the counter and all that, and then you'll learn something new about doing the dodge and the counter. So then you will be able to do it, but it'll take another couple button prompts or something. There's 1,001 ways they could approach this.
I guess we'll have to wait and see how it turns out.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna get that. That new Metroid game. It's all over. I'm all over that. But like, okay, we keep going off on these tangents, and I said throughout this podcast that we're gonna get back to it later. So let's just go into this now. Like, what is your history with the Metroid franchise? Like, for my history, it was growing up, we didn't really get a lot of video games. Metroid was definitely nowhere near me until like a couple years ago. But my friend had, I believe, a copy of Metroid Fusion or Zero Mission on his Game Boy Advance SP, and I had a Game Boy Advance SP, and we would trade games and stuff. And that was one game that I was obsessed with. And this was just obsessive. Like, and this was back in the time when you didn't care about story and all that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, story, skip it. Let me play. So I played, and I just obsessed with that game. I don't think I ever fully completed it before I gave it back to him, but that was something. And then, when on my, would it be 11th or 12th birthday? Sometime when the GameCube was out. It was my birthday. My friend brought over Metroid Prime, and we played through the entirety of Metroid Prime. And then And then that was basically it until about 2 years ago when I got heavily into video games when I had, pocket change and stuff. And I bought, Metroid, Super Metroid, Metroid Zero Mission, Metroid Fusion, all the Metroid games, and now I'm just working my way through them. And it's
awesome.
It's I love these games. Like I can honestly say that. And that's why I always say I don't think the original Metroid gets enough love for what it did for its time. Like, if you go back once again to that mindset of the NES era, when you're dealing with Mario and, jumping over this pit and Mega Man, and then you look at Metroid and how it's basically a open world game where you can go anywhere and do a lot of the stuff, but it will rock you if you're not careful. Like, that game is tough. And you gotta be able to
I wasn't able to complete it myself.
You weren't?
Nope. The original NES one? No, I didn't.
Well, you're not a fan. Get off this podcast.
Okay, bye.
Bye. No. No, but oh my god, that was so tough playing that game. And it was funny because I beat, there's only 3 bosses in the original Metroid. There's Mother Brain, Kraid, and Ridley. And legitimately, I beat Kraid, Ridley, and Mother Brain, no problem. But where I died the most was trying to jump up the platforms to get out.
Wow.
That's where I died the most, because it's just as good as that game is. There's definitely the screw attack jump. It just initiates in the worst moments. Oh my god. So then eventually it took me, I almost used up all the time it took me, but I eventually got up, but I was very slow and cautious with it. And then I went into Super Metroid and AM2R, and like I said, I haven't finished AM2R, but I'm very close. It just, I gotta find the time, and I gotta get to the point where my computer won't crash. Because my first time through AM2R I was super close. I was I think I had I was on the last Metroid. And right before, you go to the final Metroid, the Mother Metroid or whatever, and that's when I closed the game out that night, and I came home the next day, fired up the PC, the laptop, and it just crashed. And I was pissed because not only was I working on that, I was also working on a Infamous review, and I had 17 hours of Infamous gameplay footage.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was just, oh my god, I was so pissed. I was all gone. But anyways, I want to hear your story. Where does Metroid? We kind of glazed over it a little bit, but Metroid.
Okay, so the first I actually completed was Zero Mission. Then I did try Fusion. By sheer curiosity, one of my pickups, I actually got a Metroid 2 card. And since I did have a Game Boy Advance SP, I actually did try it out and see how this franchise that I didn't know much about has evolved over time. And it was quite a change. I had known about Super Metroid a bit. I did try it out once, and it didn't hook me up. It didn't hook me up that much. But having given it a second try after starting the project, pretty much like research, it was pretty awesome. Just taking the time to play the game, taking the time to actually play and enjoy the game, and thinking about the map layout, the possibilities, how to explore, those kind of things. Getting into the mindset that the game demands was necessary, and after that I actually enjoyed the game quite a lot. After that, sometime later I was actually able to get a Wii, and I did try Other M first. I played it, I survived it. I did like the mobility of Samus in that game on the side scrolling sections. The first person was hit or miss, but I really found the athletic movement that Samus had in that game to be very awesome. Then I discovered the Prime game. I played the Prime trilogy. It was different. I felt that Samus pretty much moved like a tank at first, but all the design choices that rely more on the environment design and how it tells the story through that entirely through the environment was very awesome. That's maybe getting into the Prime trilogy so late after AM2R was taking shape. Pretty much explains why there is not that many elements of Metroid Prime in the core design. AM2R is strictly a 2D game, and there's no features from Prime, like manual scanning of environments and things that were already starting to pop up into other fun games by that time. And I was just making it simple and action-based, pretty much like Zero Mission. But I had to acknowledge the Prime series at some point in some way. So including that as part of the story here and there was the way I actually felt was good enough.
Yeah. Metroid Prime would have been actually challenging for you, wouldn't it? I mean, you can't really take a 2D game into first-person space, though, huh? Like, were there any objects after you were playing it, though, that you were sitting there and you sat back and was like, man, I could add this, but we'd have to restructure so much?
There were a couple of boss fights that were scrapped, mostly because we couldn't find proper places to actually make the fight work. Some of the planned places had a very powerful Samus by that time. So the fight would be either way too easy or way too repetitive, or would have to be insanely cheap for it to actually be a challenge. So we had to scrap one entire mini-boss that was already had a nice sprite set already in the works. Other than that, some very small things that were planned for updates. There were some missing enemies from the original Metroid 2 that were going to be making an appearance, and they were so minor and so insignificant that they were left out for a patch later on. Those never occurred.
Okay. So, like, is there any other games, like, any like, if you could go back right now and change one thing in that game, what or change or add, what would be one that you would want to?
You mean in Image?
Yeah.
Maybe I should have made a little bit. I should have spent more time focusing on balancing the Omega fights. The first Omega was a little bit hard on the first release, and there's no save point nearby. So if the player gets killed, it's very tedious to actually backtrack, go back and do the entire first alpha, that kind of thing again. It's very time consuming. That was the only thing that's not up to the standard of the rest of the game. That would need my change.
Okay, is there like anything else like Metroid wise? Maybe you did after you saw the counter system in AM2 or in the Metroid 2 remake. Are you thinking? Would you be like, oh, it'd be cool to try and add something like that, or is that just something that you think would only work in like a 2.5D setting?
No, it's not exclusive to that, but that was not something that I played around. One of the very first decisions was to be sticking to the original design as much as possible. So people are going to be recognizing Metroid 2 when they are playing this. And the changes were pretty much done to the Metroids. Samus is pretty much controls like Zero Mission, and that's pretty much it. It has to feel like the similar, familiar Samus we all know, but she's in this world that hasn't been explored that much, and opening up the possibilities to feel familiarity with the character, but being into the unknown and not knowing what to expect. I thought that focus was more interesting. I didn't want to experiment that much with Samus. No new suits or new strange beams or strange abilities. Just keeping her classic with the elements that we already know, and make the environment the star of the show.
Well, I feel like that's also something that you captured pretty good in the Metroid 2 remake, and that is like Metroid and Metroid, Super Metroid, to extent like Fusion from what I played, is all about like exploring to find these things and kill it, and exploring like what's going on here, what's I gotta stop this, I gotta stop these guys from using them, like that. And Metroid 2 was very much go here, kill everything, and kick ass and take some names. And I feel like that's why in AM2R, like the whole fast pace, how Samus moves and all that is so good in AM2R, because like it is, Samus isn't being cautious. She's just like, I'm gonna kill anything I see. I'm just off the ship. I got my missiles. I'm ready to go. I'm just gonna kill whatever, whoever crosses me. I feel like that's what works so good for AM2R, especially like you can see that in the new Nintendo's remake of it too, with the counter system and how Samus is moving, like, and I feel like that works so good for the story of Metroid 2.
Certainly. This new remake seems to be expanding quite a lot on Samus and how she works, and that's awesome. I went with something that's more classical, so people can relate directly to Samus, since it's just a regular old Samus in a new place. But seeing these risky new mechanics expanding upon the characters that we already know is awesome. That has a risk of being something polarizing if it's the abilities don't happen to work well within the design. But I'm pretty confident that these guys know what they're doing, and so far what I've seen so far, this seems to be a pretty solid game.
Yeah, I'm excited for it, like we said before, but I think it's cool. I just got to give you props for what you did there, because that was really cool. I really did. I was like, this makes so much more sense than like because I have the original Game Boy cartridge and I played a little bit of it, but she moves a little sluggish and she's not as agile. You know what I mean? But then again, you got to give it credit. I mean, it's on a Game Boy. I think it isn't exactly the peak of. It's not like you're carrying around a computer or anything.
No, with the limited hardware, these guys were making an entire Metroid game work in a tiny cartridge, and the way that they actually pulled it off is very ingenious.
Well, you gotta give Gunpei Yokoi some credit. Like that was his baby. The Game Boy was his baby, and it's sad that he died soon after. I mean, I was kind of curious. I'd be kind of curious to see what would happen if what would have happened after Super Metroid. Because he died after the Virtual Boy. And like maybe what directions would have Metroid gone if he would have continued on. But yeah, I don't know. I gotta ask you this one question before we wrap up, and this is from Peter, because he sent me. He was the only one to send in a message. So for all you guys listening, if you want to be a part of these shows I do, I usually tweet out or add it on Facebook. And he asked, I'd like to hear some of his thoughts on how he approaches the level design in Ori and the Blind Furnace. Ori versus how he did with AM2R, and also how he feels about focusing specifically on level design as part of Moon Studios compared to AM2R, where he was doing basically everything.
Well, for once, it's quite a relief that I don't have to spend time fixing bugs and stuff. Working with something that's a working engine and having very talented engineers taking care of the engine is pretty awesome. Level design is very interesting, and it all boils down to pretty much the point of view of the player. Metroid players have a very different mindset to the people that play Ori. Ori is an adventure on a forest, and you're trying to restore balance to the nature, and you have quite a lot of information already. You have a very detailed map. You have an objective that you need to follow. You actually know in the general direction that you need to explore, and it doesn't require that much thought. You just focus on the adventure and all the obstacles and have fun looking at the insanely detailed environment. Metroid, on the other hand, requires the player to be alert. You're entering into unknown territory. There's danger everywhere, and the minimap is an integral part of the design. You pretty much have to design places so whenever you have to backtrack with a new ability, you actually get to see some incomplete part of the map, hinting the player that you need to go there for next. Those kind of things are pretty much around how the player is thinking and how much has the player mastered the ability that's going to be tested on the current place. So both have the same element of having the player experiment a little bit with the new acquired abilities, but Metroid always feels a little bit more dangerous. There's always some sort of conflict and fighting, some set piece right after you get a new beam, and or they are actually rewards after beating bosses. There's no boss fights in Ori, so things have a little bit of a different pacing.
Hey, that's not true. Ori faces a giant owl.
Does Ori destroy it with a giant beam or something?
You know what? It's not really much of a boss fight, but still, she takes on a giant owl.
It's their lovely chase set pieces.
It's very one-sided. It's a very one-sided fight, but at the same point in time, boss fight.
Yeah, well, if you want to count it as a boss fight, awesome. It works. So yeah, it's in the core they are very similar levels. You have player progression, and it needs to flow properly so the player doesn't get bored, or the backtracking isn't boring.
Which is why the definitive edition, when you can warp, is just 10 times better than the original in Ori. Because
I heard that complaint quite a lot. I need to try the original version and see how backtracking is as tedious as they say or not.
Just don't, because I hate to say it, like, there's some sections in, like, this is another problem in Ori's map is, in Ori's map, the sections of the world are very divided. There are some areas that cross over, but not like any, not as good as they should, and that so. Like, Ori is constantly, like, when you used to have to backtrack, it was always just like, okay, pause, look at the map. Okay, move a little bit more, pause, look at the map. Because there's no mini-map in Ori either, And that's something that's, like, Metroid is so good about, because you have that mini-map, so you can kind of see stuff, but no. Ori and the Blind Forces, or the original version was just so bad. Because it was just like,
and the mini-map would help up to a certain point. The design is so organic that it's not divided into rooms. You don't translate that into small rectangles.
Yeah.
So
I understand. I understand why they did that. Like you said, with that reason. But I think it's also like they wanted to keep the screen not so cluttered. You know what I mean? Because let's be honest. Like if you look at Ori and then you see a moving picture, not so much as a video game. And if you had Ori with a mini map up in the right hand corner, you'd be like, okay, this is a video game. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it makes sense to have Samus display ammunition and health and energy, a mini map. It kind of feels like an extension of what she gets to see on her helmet. So
yeah,
you can actually have that navigation aid up there. That's also part of orientating the player and pretty much evaluating how much does the player know about the environment, and how can I actually guide the player without blatantly telling them where to go.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's just amazing. Like this whole like how Moon Studios took that and was like, okay, you can see a lot of it in Moon Studios, like how they took their options and they went for the more artistic route than where other people did, and that's super cool. And like I said, I keep saying this, like, I feel like someone's probably going to hear this and be like, oh, he didn't like Ori? God, and hate on me, but Ori is a fantastic game, and like I said, I just nitpick, and when you just look at the nitpicks just because you want to find something wrong with the game, because it wronged you in some way, or you feel it wronged you. But I maintain that Ori is a fantastic game.
Awesome. Let's hope that the sequel doesn't have that same problem.
I hope you better do a good job, because now I got your contact info. It's gonna...
Oh, okay. No pressure though.
No pressure. No, It's super cool though. I'm excited for you to, I'm excited to see what you bring there because one of the biggest problems in the Blind Forest is I felt the hidden areas in the map, were just a
Mm-hmm.
little too easy to find. Even before you got the ability to, see those hidden areas, I was just like, needs a little bit more. You need a little bit more, There are some out
All
there
right.
that you do, and it's like, oh, cool, that was cool. I didn't notice that, But then there was others where it's just like, well, that was, staring me right in the face as someone who's played probably way too many Metroidvania titles.
Maybe we have a very open perception of stuff. We are very Metroidy.
Yeah, I think that might be my a lot of my problem, because like if I were to sit down, say my brother or another one of my friends down to play a Metroid game, they wouldn't look, they just power through the levels and they wouldn't find nearly as much stuff as like you or I would. But then again, like me and you, we're just like, oh my god, a Metroid game! I'm just gonna spend like 30 hours in this thing because I got no better time. And everybody else just like, oh well, that was fun. I ain't gonna look for the final little bit of peace. Like one of the Metroidvania titles I always play the crap out of, and I love this one to death. And if you haven't played it, or anybody listening hasn't played it, I highly recommend you buy this game immediately and play it. And that is Shadow Complex.
Oh yes,
That is
that one is pretty awesome.
yeah, that is a Metroid game, but it's not. Like it is the most Metroidvania game ever. And that it's not a Metroid game. And
I found the 3D animations to look strange with the platform physics. The interpolation between animations is weird, but once you get used to it, it feels great.
That is one of those games where, like, legitimately, if I'm not playing anything or if I'm not really in the mood, I'll just pop out Shadow Complex and play it. Like, that game is truly amazing. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. But, like, one of my biggest things is, like, in Shadow Complex, I'll be like, I'm just gonna try and go for a trophy, but then I end up just, oh, I know where this is, and I'll just grab this, and I'm just like, well, I can't get the trophy now because I got too many items, so I'll just get all the gold and collect everything, and I'll just 100% the map while I'm at it. Like, no big deal.
Yes, the only thing I have with that game is that the end sequence feels a little bit out of place.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe replace that with some more epic boss fights instead of having to hit switches in the middle of gunfight.
Yeah.
But the rest of the game is very solid. I did enjoy it quite a lot.
Well, like we talked earlier, the spectrum of Ori is always weak and Samus becomes a tank. Well, then where you meet in the middle of Shadow Complex, and Shadow Complex is you start out super weak and you become super strong, you know what I mean? And it's just like, once you get the shotgun in Shadow Complex, all the difficulty is gone. Because you just walk up, just shoot it, and no big deal. Oh, big guy with a machine gun, I got this. It's just like, it works to an extent, but at the same point in time, it's definitely overpowered. And yeah, the ending sequence does stand out of place. And now, let me ask you this though, since we're on the topic of it. Do you think they're gonna make a sequel to Shadow Complex? Because, like, he's got the shotgun or whatever gun you pointed at the guy, and she kills him. Sorry, spoiler alert for an 8-year-old game. And they're just like, well, can't tell you what's going on here, but you can come with us. And he goes with them. I'm just like, oh, maybe this is a sequel. I don't know. Cool game. Definitely worth playing. Like, if anybody has to touch that game, definitely worth playing.
If a sequel comes out,
Yeah.
it will be welcome. I shall play it.
Oh, yeah. I played the crap out of that. Give me an excuse to do some Shadow Complex content, too. But yeah, amazing game. Like, I absolutely love Shadow Complex. Another good game, Axiom Verge. Have you played that one?
Oh, yes. That was the first game I played when I actually finished M2R. I started playing all the Castlevanias, all the Metroidvanias I didn't have time to play up to that point. Mm-hmm. And the first one was Axiom Verge. A pretty awesome game.
That is heavily Metroid inspired.
Yes.
I had a friend who told me it's not like Metroid at all, and I looked at him like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, what? What part of that isn't Metroid inspired? It's an amazing game, though. Like, Tom Happ really deserves a lot of credit for what he did there. And that was one guy, kind of like you. But, like, one guy, and he did an amazing job.
Yeah, the variety of the character is very unique. It doesn't feel Metroidy, and the gameplay is a little bit more frantic.
Mm-hmm.
I did enjoy that a lot. So, the item progression was also distinct. So it felt fresh. Even if the atmosphere felt kind of Metroidy, the overall game felt very original, and I did enjoy it quite a lot.
Mm-hmm. Well, is there any? I think we ought to wrap this thing up. So, is there anything else you want to talk about? Any? You did hint at another project that you're working on. You want to give any hints to that, or is that just hush hush at the moment?
No, at the moment, I had to pretty much put that project on the freezer. I was actually starting something new on Unity. It was going to be Metroidvania, but since I'll be pretty busy with Ori, though that thing is going to be taking a step back into my free time. But yes, it was going to be a 2D platformer.
Another Super Metroid remake coming 2024.
No. Enough remakes for me.
Enough remakes. This is going to be your own property?
Yes, something completely original, and making sure that whatever I do is doesn't look like anything we've seen before.
Okay, so
that's quite difficult.
So now I'm curious, and now I don't know. So that's it. Okay. Well, now I want you to make this game, anyways. But anything else?
Thank you to all the awesome listeners that are taking the time to actually listen to us debate from all the topics. Thank you for staying by, and if you need anything, any further news about AM2R or any future projects, you can find me on Twitter at AM2R Game or at Dr. M64. Looking forward to working with Moon Studios, and like always, thank you very much for supporting AM2R and for all the awesomeness.
Yeah, I'll put all your social media links down in the description below.
Awesome.
But once again, I gotta thank you for coming on. I mean, like, we didn't stay on topic that good, but
I'm a terrible guest.
I feel like this was
you can say it.
I feel like this was a really good podcast because it was just like I had a lot of fun just talking to you because it felt like a good combination. Two Metroidvania fans and all that. So once again, I gotta thank you again for coming on, and it was exciting to hear you talk about your AM2R and your future with Moon Studios. I look forward to hearing you, seeing what you do with Moon Studios and all that, and maybe we'll have to have you on. And you can talk about Oi and the Blind Wisp if they'll allow you. But yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, later on, it will be a pleasure as soon as I can.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And for all you listeners out there, this was our AM2R podcast. I have to thank you, Milton, again for coming on. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the Infinity Game for more content. There's going to be a lot more coming. I got a lot of cool stuff planned, hopefully. So, once again, thank you all for listening again. Thank you, Milton. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.